From Content 360, this is the state of client acquisition. Welcome to the State of Client Acquisition. This is your host, Michael Bohannes. In today's episode, I discuss the question of whether business coaches should use Facebook. I discuss the ethical considerations of this question, and once that's out of the way, I cover 4 ways how you can optimally use Facebook without selling your soul to the devil. So without further ado, let's get right into this week's episode. Should business coaches, consultants, and small B2B CEOs use Facebook? This is the topic of today's episode. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because I recently saw someone posting and asking a question on LinkedIn, asking what alternatives to LinkedIn groups their network was seeing. So they were looking for advice on what to use. And I mentioned Facebook groups, and the person said this is not an option for them because they dislike Facebook. And I said, why? And they said, well, because their leadership is bad and they just don't like the people running the company. And I was thinking, it's an interesting position. I can empathize with it because I'm not a fan of the people leading Facebook myself. But then am I being a hypocrite if I use their product and services? And as I was thinking about that, I came to the conclusion that it is a little bit amateurish, I think. If you're a business coach and you just steadfastly refuse to use Facebook, it is a little bit like you are a chef and you just steadfastly refuse to use knives. Yes, you can cut the meat probably with a well-sharpened spoon or a spoon handle or something like this, but it just won't be that good. You know, you are spiting your nose to, what is it called? You're cutting off your nose to spite your own face. And so I wanted to talk about that because I got quite a bit of pushback on some of my thoughts on this. And I do stand by my thoughts on the topic of business coaches using Facebook. So let's elaborate on it and give a complete overview, first of all, of the foundations, whether they should do it, and what can be good counter arguments to use if you feel like you have ethical problems doing that. And then how specifically you can use Facebook if you're a business coach yourself. And I'm specifying business coach here and business consultant mostly, and small B2B you can call it, where I don't necessarily include people like life coaches, fitness coaches, and so on, because there I presume that Facebook is already on your radar screen. I'm talking to those who are mainly using LinkedIn and are wondering whether they should diversify into Facebook as well. So now let's first cover this topic of what if you are genuinely bothered about what Facebook is doing with all the censoring that they're doing and their newsfeed and their hunger for your data and all of that. Like, these are legitimate concerns. And by the way, if you're just kind of doing this for virtue signaling and moral posturing, then there's nothing I will be able to tell you that will make you change your mind. So this is mainly for the people who are wondering genuinely, how can they justify it with themselves to use Facebook. Okay, so because it's a valid point and I've struggled with it as well. So my response to this is I have 3 points to this. Point number 1 is that let's keep things in perspective. Okay, Facebook is not the Gestapo. Okay, they're a corporation just like any other. They have much more power than many other corporations, and they are wielding that power partially in a bad way. But many other companies engage in very similar kinds of censorship, at least internally. It's just that Facebook has this product that is perfectly suited for censorship, but it doesn't mean that if there were other people in charge that they would be doing many things differently. Okay, so it's just we're being run by, the company is being run by some very misguided people. That's what I think. But so are many other companies in the world today. And if you really try to keep track of every company who's doing something that you don't like, then this would be a full-time job for you. Okay, so why would you single out Facebook necessarily? Then second point is you choose your pain. I think it's a very important thing to understand. In every single business that you start, you have some good things and some bad things. If you are a business coach who's mainly working online, then you have this amazing benefit of being completely safe in your home. You can be with your family, especially in COVID times. You can be with your family. You don't have to leave your house. You're doing everything from the warmth and safety of your home office, and you have a wonderful life that way. Okay, it's like people throughout history would have dreamed about that. That's a positive. The negative is that you have to use Facebook and LinkedIn to get word out about yourself. Okay, so it's just accept the pain with the benefits. Similarly, if you had a business where whatever you're delivering coal, I don't know, or something much more hands-on, like a highly technically specialized business where you're so entrenched in the business, then you have other pain. If you are delivering coal, you're going to get dirty. Every single choice carries its ancillary pain point. And that is happening with being a coach, consultant, anybody who sells their services. If you're not already so entrenched that you have your stock of clients, you never have to go online, then great, power to you. You don't have to do this. Pretty much 99.99% of people who are selling their services in this world, in the business world, they have to be online. It's like if you say you can afford to not have a website, then power to you. Vast majority of people cannot do that. So choose your pain, and once you have chosen this profession, accept it and use the unpleasantness that is Facebook. And third point, and I think this is probably the clincher, especially if you're worried about Facebook's ethics and especially what they're doing with your data, you can really nicely spite them by using their good features without giving them any of the benefits. If you use a Facebook newsfeed blocker, you will be completely shielded from their algorithm, because the newsfeed is really the evil thing there. It's designed by thousands and thousands of engineers to deliver you the content that will keep you optimally distracted. And if you block that, and there's a Chrome extension, it's in the show notes, the link to it's in the show notes. I cannot highly recommend it. I cannot recommend it any higher than I do. It's excellent. It has saved me hours, days, weeks of time that I'm now not wasting being in their newsfeed. And if you're not in their newsfeed, they have very little data on you. They still have all the Facebook pixels, they have all the websites, so they still know a bunch about you. But the main benefit is that you are not exposed to their algorithm when you are using Facebook itself. So you're not using the algorithm, they cannot serve you ads. And they can on the right-hand panel and so on. So nothing's perfect, but honestly, 97% of the effectiveness that they have with you, like the way how they can serve you ads and make money off you, 97% of that is mitigated if you have that newsfeed blocker. And you can simply use their products for free without being exposed to the downside. So those are the three main reasons why I find it okay. I'm not terribly happy about it that I have to use Facebook, but it's just a fact of life. Okay, cool. So those are the topics about the ethical aspect of it. Another question that I got from a listener reader, he asked me, well, what if you haven't mastered LinkedIn yet? Should you do Facebook then? And I think you should actually first master one platform before you move to another. I don't think it's a good idea to diversify too early, because then you're essentially just splitting your attention, and it's the classic person who chases two rabbits catches none. But what does it mean to have mastered LinkedIn? I would say that master is a relative term, but I would say that I have sort of reached process mastery with LinkedIn now, because I cannot really increase my activity by a lot. What I'm doing is that I'm posting once a day, and I'm sending messages to the maximum amount of people I can send to without LinkedIn throwing me in LinkedIn jail. And I have some virtual assistants helping me in some of those tasks. And that's pretty much it. I cannot do much more on LinkedIn. I have pretty optimized processes, and I get a pretty predictable stream of clients from my work on LinkedIn. And that's via content and via starting conversations. I can always, of course, get better, do better content, optimize my conversations. And I'm doing that, I'm tweaking it, but that's pretty much where I'm at. But even before I've reached mastery on LinkedIn, I used Facebook for its group function, and only for that. Okay, so because I remember last time I saw the newsfeed is probably some 2018 or so. So I've been exclusively using groups. And also I would recommend that you remove all notifications for anything that is not activity in the few groups that you will be a member in. Okay, so that you can still do that. Use Facebook only for the groups function, just to learn and to just be connected. And otherwise, I would say don't use Facebook yet until you have reached this level of near LinkedIn perfection. Okay, so, but now that we've got that out of the way, so the question of ethics, and the second question is, have you mastered the topic of LinkedIn? Have you mastered the process there? Let's now get into the 4 ways how you can, as a business coach or consultant or small B2B CEO, use Facebook. And all of these have one key functionality of Facebook, which is groups. And that's important, not pages, but groups. I sometimes see people creating a page for themselves, like their personal business page and so on. I don't think that's of much use. A page is not really something people can like it, and then they will see the page updates in their newsfeed, but a page is mainly a vehicle to deliver ads. You will need a page if you want to buy ads on Facebook. And other than that, it's not really very, very useful. But groups are really excellent because you just get people in, and then once they're in, they have to, for example, answer a few questions. And then once they're in, once you've allowed them in, they're kind of in a bubble, in a little group that you can then up to a point control, and you can reach them in that group. Okay, so here are the 4 main ways how you can leverage the group function. First of all is learn. So I strongly recommend that you join groups in your industry to learn from others. Of course, you have to learn also from books and other resources, but the groups are excellent because there are some industry leaders in there who freely share content, and you can learn from them. And yes, of course, most of them are selling you something, but these days, they cannot really sell you something without delivering you value first. So they have to write quality content there. And if you learn from them, if you learn their tactics and hacks, you're going to get much better in what you do. And I cannot tell you how much I personally have learned in the groups, in the free groups, such as Consulting Community, ClickFunnels, and then also the paid groups that I have joined as a consequence of me joining some coaching and coaching programs that I have paid for to join. If you yourself right now at this point don't know any groups to join, I would just say ask 10 competitors in your space who are more advanced, more successful than you, which Facebook groups they would recommend, if they have any Facebook groups to recommend. Because this is really where the cutting edge of some of the aspects, for example, in my world, digital marketing, this is where I learn really the best possible methods. Like recently, I got an excellent cold email from someone, and I shared how this person did this cold email, and we started discussing it. Somebody gave me an idea of how I could replicate that and so on. It's a wonderful tool to really bounce ideas around with thought leaders in this space. Okay, so for learning, groups are truly, truly excellent. Once you have joined these groups, make sure that your notifications are set in a way that you'll get notified when someone in the groups posts something. Okay, so that is point number 1, learn. Point number 2, operations. It is useful to have a group for your clients where they can interact and ask questions. It's not an absolute must, this part. It's an optional one. And if you're not set up that way, that you have sort of like a group, once a client joins you, then become part of a club, so to speak. If that's not your thing, you don't need to do that, especially if you're in a more corporate setting. But I would actually, even if you are in a corporate setting, I would invite you to consider that. Could you add a little bit extra value if, let's say, you're selling to HR managers? Would there really not be an additional value if you invited those HR managers into the Facebook group, and they could then interact, network, learn from each other, and so on? So that's on the operation side. Once you have a client, you just invite them in there. Point number 3 is sales. You can mine other groups for prospective clients. So whichever group you join, for example, I mentioned before Consulting Community or ClickFunnels, I recommend that you use a paid tool. It costs, I believe, some $25 a month. It's called Chat Silo. Chat Silo, the link is going to be in the show notes as well. Don't have an affiliate link or anything like that. I just recommend it to you. So it's a tool with which you can, it's like a little CRM tool with which you can apply labels on people who you talk to on Facebook. So just imagine you have like the whole row of people talking to you in Messenger, and you just can see next to them a little colored label that says in conversation or rejected or to be opened, right? So that way you can easily see where people fall in your funnel, and when you start conversations, you know then what to do with them. You don't have to think, oh, this person, what have I done? No. You just immediately see it in the Facebook Messenger feed. So with Chat Silo, you can simply label people, and you can then, once you have this installed, add about up to 30 people a day on Facebook and message them. Now, important, don't do that right off the bat. Work your way up there. Start with 5, then make it 10 after a few days, 15, 20, and so on until you reach 30. Don't do more than 30. Add this person and start a friendly conversation with them. And how to do that, I covered this in previous episodes. So just go back to one of the previous episodes where I talked about the conversations that got me clients on LinkedIn. And essentially the format is the same. You need to ask a little bit more from them what they do, because it's not as visible on Facebook as it is on LinkedIn. But generally the process of conversations to getting them to a call is the same as it is on LinkedIn. And best if you're referencing the group that you both belong to in the opening message. And so that's sales. This is a really useful tool, and I recommend if you prioritize anything, this would be the number one thing to do. Of course, you need a good profile. Make sure that your profile reflects what you do, and you're good to go. And then fourth, marketing. Facebook is, of course, great for marketing. And here's 2 main ways how to do that. First of all, by posting detailed how-to posts in the group that you join. How to do something that was difficult for you and that you actually have figured out. And this is so key that it's genuine. Those things are really hard to write. I'm in the process of creating my own now, and it is quite the challenge because, there's several things that I figured out, but to really put it in a way that gives value to people, it is truthful, and yet at the same time puts you in the best possible light. There's a lot of balancing that you need to do. But if you write nice long form, let's say 1,000 to 1,500 words posts that you can then post in those groups that just purely add value, that thing can get you a lot of fans. People will start adding you. They will want to join your group if you have one. We'll cover that in the next point. They will like your content. They will comment on it, and you can then start adding them and opening conversations with them as well. So this will help you massively in marketing. And the second way how to use marketing on Facebook is, but that is really for a later stage, I recommend you don't do that all at once, is having your own free group where you will just collect people who are interested in what you do, but they're not ready to buy it. And it's something where you will be sharing useful content and encouraging networking and so on. There's a lot to building that group. So I really recommend that if you are relatively new to starting on Facebook for business, then I recommend that you skip that one first and focus on putting high quality content out there on your personal profile and in the groups that you join, and starting conversations with relevant people using Chat Silo, adding these people and starting conversations and getting them on the phone. Okay, so those are the main ways how you as a business coach consultant can leverage Facebook for optimal use for your business. Number one is learn from them, use them for operations, as in for your clients as a means to network. Number three, find people to sell to, and then marketing, detailed how-to posts, and creating your own group. Finally, quick point about whether you should use different profiles, because somebody asked me a question today what he should do because he had a lot of personal stuff on Facebook. He never used it for business and he had connections to friends and so on. So there's 2 options. One is you just simply remove much of the personal, especially the embarrassing stuff, and just go ahead with it, or you start a new profile. I personally have chosen the first path. I haven't even bothered removing. I don't have really anything super embarrassing on Facebook, I believe. Just some personal photos that are pretty much nobody's business when I was still foolish and uploaded personal stuff on Facebook. But I don't really care if somebody finds anything that I now may be slightly embarrassed about, because, sorry, will this person really become a client ever? So I don't really care about that. The main point here is that you want to encourage serendipity. That's the main point, because I cannot tell you how many people reached out to me from people who I've long forgotten. I haven't even talked to them in like 15 years. And after I now started posting business content on Facebook, they've come out of the woodwork and they asked me if they can have a call with me. So there's plenty of opportunities. I think I even closed definitely one client that came from Facebook, right? And just from my organic content there, just because I was cross-posting stuff from LinkedIn. So because I've been on Facebook for 14 years now, people have accumulated. Some of them will be relevant to me. Most of them will not. And those who are friends, well, if they see that I'm posting business content, I will never ever post anything personal on Facebook again. So I don't really care. It's not like I'm doing anything bad to these friends. I just have other means to connect with them. I'm not going to be using Facebook for that anymore. So this is my rationale for just using my existing profile. But if you're a very private person, you don't want your business connections to see anything of your personal life, then I recommend that you just simply go through it, remove all the photos, everything that you can from your posts that you don't like anymore, and just use that. It's probably going to be a day of work. It's definitely going to be worth it, because those connections are valuable. You don't know who of your, if you have 1,000 connections, that's 1,000 connections. And some of them could become your client at some point. But if you really don't want to do that, then just simply start a new profile. Start from scratch. It's going to take you many months to get to the right level. But if you like a clean slate, then do that. Cool. So that's that. If this was useful to you and you would like to know how you can level up your own game on LinkedIn or Facebook, just find me on LinkedIn. My name is Michael Bohannes, and we can have a chat. Also, if you would like to join my free lead generation course for LinkedIn, go to www.michaelbohannes.com. That's Michael without an E, Michal, Bohannes.com/action taker challenge. This will be in the show notes as well. And this course, this completely free course, will teach you in 3 days how to get at least one quality call with a prospective client. So if doing outbound is something that you're a little bit worried about, queasy about, this is the best way to lose the fear of that. Cool. And that's it for today. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. The State of Client Acquisition is a Content 360 production. Music by Gavin Knox Grand. To sign up for alerts and to submit written and audio questions, go to stateofclientacquisition.com. Unless I announce it otherwise, the live podcast is recorded on Wednesdays each week at 7 p.m. Central European Time. That's 6 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 10 a.m. Pacific. And you can always join by going to www.talktomichael.com. That's Michael without an E. But if you sign up at the podcast page, you'll get the link in an email each week. I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Rapid fire across the country, we slide tonight.